Back to New Day. Breaking overnight, a fifth American with Ebola is back in the United States this morning. He's headed for treatment in Nebraska. But Texas is still at the center of Ebola concerns because Thomas Eric Duncan, the man on your screen, remains in critical condition, and several of his relatives are under CDC quarantine. Now, the CDC insists the chances of an Ebola outbreak in the U.S. are very low, and officials have used that to justify not instituting travel bans or any more harsh restrictions. At the right move. Let's bring in Congressman Sessions. He's a Republican from Texas, and Thomas Eric Duncan is being treated in his district. Congressman, thank you for joining us this morning.
Good morning, Chris.
So what do we know about the hospital involved? Because in your own backyard, it's where the problem started. Not to blame Dallas, of course, but the hospital seemed to move back from accountability. It said we screwed up, we should have done it. And then they said, well, it was a software glitch. We have to make sure that people own their protocols and the responsibilities taken seriously. What is your take on how the hospital is handling it?
Well, first of all, Presbyterian Hospital in Dallas is one of the finest and most reputable hospitals, I think, not only in Dallas but in the country. In fact, there was someone dropping the ball, and it was, whether it was protocol or whether it was someone having inattention to what happened, there was a mistake. And I think, first of all, they were forthright about that. Now, the question is, how are we handling the circumstance here in Dallas? And I think, by and large, what I see from my perspective, and I attended the briefing, is just as you were alluding to, Chris, the CDC seems to take this as an academic or statistical kind of an exercise, saying terms like 100% chance or things are all safe, as opposed to trying to gather what I believe should be the public's attention on this and focusing where we should go and how we should get there. If we have an outbreak of measles, if we have an outbreak of influenza or flu, it is not uncommon for people to ask that children stay at home. Mm-hmm. We try and quarantine people. This is a scary thing to many Americans, and I think the federal government should respond in kind. First of all, I think this should have had a more robust understanding of exactly how to handle a circumstance like this, up to and including if you were having to go in and clean out the apartment, could you transfer or transmit those items down the street?
Well,
evidently, that requires a different permit. And these are the things the CDC should be doing.
Right, but it gets complicated. I don't disagree with anything you're saying, by the way, but it gets complicated. You have the local authorities, you have the state authorities, you then have like 5 different federal agencies involved, and we know what happens in government. When you have the more chefs you have, the worse the soup is going to taste, right? How much of that do you believe is at play right now?
Well, I believe what's at play right now is the county of Dallas County is working directly with CDC and taking them at their word, literally, on everything that needs to be done. Once again, it may be complex, but let's not say it's 100% safe. Let's play to people and be able to answer questions about what specifically we're asking them to do. And I believe one of the biggest problems that is going to occur is, as more and more people come to America, and for America to be compassionate and help either Americans or others, there are going to be questions about containing what is this Ebola problem. And that's where, if we use this as a model and do it well and correctly and know what we're talking about, then things will go better for CDC.
So there are 2 things to take a look at. One, how the family of Mr. Duncan has been treated. Suboptimal, to say the least. You have people flying back on special airplanes, and then you have them stuck in an apartment, and they didn't even really know, as far as we can tell, about the dirty sheets and towels that were in there until an interview with Anderson Cooper. That has to be addressed. Then the opposite end of the scale, you have something that you've taken very seriously. Travel restrictions. They don't even want to talk about them as being something that could be helpful. What's your thought on that?
Well, the thought is, when I was briefed immediately last week by the CDC, I asked the director of the CDC his opinion, because I believe his opinion is important. He referred me to an article from 2 weeks previously in the Financial Times, and I asked him to please reevaluate now that what had been an academic exercise was now reality. And I think this is what the administration needs to be doing. There's a lot of finger pointing back and forth about what's the right or the wrong thing. What is correct is that we treat this in a circumstance where we stop travel to the United States, not just from there, but also understanding that the African travel goes to Europe and other places. We could have people who are visiting the United States. This is a reasonable precaution that the American people would expect us to do as elected officials and as servants of the people.
You asked the CDC, Dr. Tom Frieden, for his opinion, and he gave you an article from the Financial Times? That was his response to you?
In fact, that's correct.
I'm sure that didn't make you too satisfied in the moment, Congressman, but hopefully we'll get better answers going forward.
What it did is it made me ask him to reevaluate that process, and we'll find out whether he's going to do that. The American public need to know that this is being handled correctly, and Dallas can get that done. We're behind the curve. We need to catch up quickly.
Congressman Sessions, thank you very much for joining us today. We'll check in with you again.
Thank you.